Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But before we get into that, I gotta give a big shout out to Kevin Johnston. Kevin just recently joined us in support over at patreon.com/PCP. Kevin, we really do appreciate it, and on behalf of everybody in the excitable PCP crew and the PCP Army, station, we really do appreciate it. Now let's get on to the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Department of Truth, number 3, by James Tynion, Martin Simmons, Aditya Bidikar. I freaking love this book. Issue 3 blew me away, just like issue number 1, just like issue number 2. I love this book. The basic premise is this. What if every conspiracy theory you've ever heard is true, and there is a government organization that is investigating these strange occurrences, but the reason why every conspiracy theory is true is because it's all tied into the belief of the populace of the world. Fantastic ideas. In issue number 3, they tackle the tough subject of school shootings. You know what I'm talking about. But it's the artwork. The artwork shines. First of all, James Tynion IV does such a great job of tackling a very somber subject matter in a very interesting and provocative way. And then Martin Simmons' artwork is just amazing. There are double-page spreads in here that I would absolutely love to have framed on my wall here in the Huntsville attic. Like, seriously, the artwork by Martin Simmons, and I've been a fan of Martin Simmons for a while, this is next level for him. This is far above and beyond anything that Simmons has ever put out. In fact, far beyond what most people are putting out today. The storytelling, the mood, the atmosphere, the grit, the rawness, the way that this book is portraying reality as some kind of dark and shifting thing, and the artwork fits it so well. And then you have Aditya Bidikar going even further in style than he ever has before as far as the lettering goes. Some of the absolute best lettering, writing, and artwork in comics is in Department of Truth. Number 3 this week. It makes the pick of the week. In fact, it was also my Thunderdome pick. That's right, PCP, we are so close to ultimate victory in Bueller's Thunderdome. I can almost taste it. We just need your support. There's a link down below to check out Bueller's latest weekly top 10 video, and be sure to vote for PCP/Department of Truth in the Thunderdome. Let's move on through. We got some DC books to talk about. DC Future State, first of all. This is going to be a freebie that's given out this week, and it lets you know what exactly Future State is. What are the characters? What are the worlds? What's the timeline? What is the whole idea? Now, we've talked about it plenty here on the channel, including a lot on Rockin' Robbie Live. But if you're still a bit confused or just want to know a little bit more information, including a complete checklist, this is the freebie for you. I love the Dan Mora gatefold cover there. I think it's super sharp. I'm actually really excited for Future State because there's some really great teams like Ron B doing Swamp Thing with Mike Perkins. You got Sean Lewis and Philip Kennedy Johnson coming on to the Superman books. Y'all, come on. And Dan Mora doing Batman. Detective, dark detective actually, but still. There you go. From DC Black Label, we have The Other History of the DC Universe, long delayed. This is very long delayed. So it's written by John Ridley with artwork by GFC Kamenkoli. I really like it. The artwork feels raw. It feels almost like a Dennis Cowan, Bill Sienkiewicz type thing. In fact, I had to do a double take and look at the credits because it seemed like they did the artwork. So many people will probably be immediately disconcerted with this issue because it's not a comic book per se. It's not like people talking in word balloons and a sequential story. It is much like History of the DC Universe, which came out right after Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was by Marv Wolfman, George Perez. It was text with amazing artwork by George Perez that was explaining the new history of the DC Universe. This is doing the same type of format, albeit in the magazine-sized Black Label format, which I think really helps accentuate the book. I think it actually comes across a little bit more powerful at times than the history of the DC Universe. Also, the subject matter has a lot to do with that. So John Ridley's telling the history of the DC Universe. And the stuff that happened in the 70s, like was published in the 70s, it's in the 70s here, then the 80s. So they're going a little bit old school. But it's from the perspective of marginalized heroes in the DC Universe. Mostly Black Lightning, but they're talking about Jon Stewart. They're talking about a lot of black heroes. And they're also going to be going even further than that, just non-white DC heroes. This is the history of the DC Universe from their perspective, and I really liked it. Thought it was great. There's a lot of text. It's a long read. It's not like reading a comic book. It's more like an illustrated book. But it was well worth it. I actually did really like it. The other history of the DC Universe, number 1, out this week. I thought that was very, very cool. Dark Knight's Death Metal. Yeah! The Multiverse Who Laughs. Number 1. It's another one-shot. So in the pages of Death Metal, we have had the Batman Who Laughs ascend to goddom, right? To godhood, and he has now created his own multiverse. This is basically a bunch of short stories spotlighting different worlds within the Batman Who Laughs multiverse. The Multiverse Who Laughs. Get it? It's okay. It's got some interesting concepts, some cool stories. The opening story that's narrated by Robin King is probably my favorite. That's the one Snyder, Williamson, and Tynion worked on. But overall, the book is still fun. It adds some nice layers of excitement, I guess, to the world's building of Dark Knight's Death Metal, but it's not essential. It's not necessary. And if you wanted to skip one of these $6 one-shots, this might be the one to do it. But if you're like me and you're a big death metal head, you got to check it out. I thought it was interesting. It wasn't super great, though. In fact, out of all of the metal one-shots, to me, that's been the weakest, but I think that's almost by design because it's just not... It doesn't have as much gravity as far as the actual story goes. Batman White Knight presents Harley Quinn issue number 2. Loved this issue. Also from DC Black Label, from the Murphyverse, as we've been calling it. White Knight, Curse of White Knights. Now, we're getting these miniseries that are going to be focusing in on and spotlighting certain characters. This one, Harley Quinn. I've never been the biggest Harley Quinn fan, but seriously, in the pages of Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight verse, this has been my favorite version of Harley. Now, we get a lot of origin in here. We get a lot of motivation in here. Some great character work. And amazing artwork by Matteo Scalera. The composition, the page layouts and design, it's very striking. So I like the artwork. I like the story. I like the usage of the Neo Joker to kind of once again talk about the... There's almost been like these two versions of Harley. One more centered and based into the animated series, and one a little bit more New 52, a little more Suicide Squad-y. And I like the commentary that's being done here. But the artwork is great. And then Katana Collins, as the co-writer on this, handling the script duties, she does a really great job with this one and with the characterizations. Let's move on. Justice League Dark 28. This is Ram V and artist Nahulpan. They are, in this issue, they completely wrap up this whole Upside Down saga thing. Now, this has been built up and started by James Tynion, and Ram V had the, I guess I should say, opportunity to come in and kind of finish James's story, and then, I guess, hopefully, take it off into his own run. Rom's going to be writing this title in Future State in the Justice League bit. He's doing Swamp Thing, which is kind of connected here. There's a little bit of setup for that, I'm pretty sure, in this issue. But a great finale to the whole Upside Down Man thing. If you've been reading this since issue number 1, I think you're really going to like it. It hits to a finale. Like, this could be the final issue. Obviously, it's not, because it's got an Endless Winter tie-in, and then it's got a backup story in the Future State Justice League book. But I hope this book continues, because Ram V had been finally coming into his own, bringing in his own style, wrapping up what James Tynion had set up, but having his own distinct style and voice and interpretation on the characters and what Ram was setting up and what he was doing. Even though he was polishing off the Tynion stuff, I thought was masterful. And Justice League Dark number 28 is an ending of sorts, but I hope it also launches into a lot more beginnings for these characters under, I was going to say tutelage of Ram V, but under the pen of Ram V. Suicide Squad number 11. This is the final issue. Tom Taylor's final issue. He's been telling one story through these 11 issues. We had a big resolution and conclusion in the last issue, so this is kind of just tying up those loose ends and setting up some characters that Tom Taylor had created and worked with on these issues and possibly setting up their future in the DCU. I really like this issue. I thought this was a super run from DC Comics, from Tom Taylor and company. Redondo's artwork is great. It's got a style, it's got a panache to it, it's got some flair, and it has a very solid ending. I'm completely compelled by these new characters. I want to see more. This has been a great usage of Harley Quinn as well. You find out that Tom Taylor did some significant things in his run, and as of the final issue, it seems like a lot of them are going to have a little bit of lasting power. But Suicide Squad number 11 was a very satisfying conclusion, albeit bittersweet to a point, because it is sad to see that run end. The Flash is here with 766. So this is the new writer. It's Schnick. Is it Kevin Schnick? I don't know. Yeah, Kevin Schnick, Will Conrad. It's okay. This wraps up the whole Dr. Alchemy ring story. It feels like filler still to me. It's okay, it's decent, but it's really hard for a writer, for a team to come in and kind of follow up something like what Joshua Williamson had done with great artists like Christian Ducci and Carmine Dijon-Domenico and Howard Porter, and just do the story that it's neat. Like, I guess it's one of the better Dr. Alchemy stories I've read, but I mean, really, like, who cares? Like, Dr. Alchemy, it's got some interesting ideas. It's okay. It gets pretty cheesy at the end here. I think it's got some, how do I describe it? Like, preachy, super old school comic booky type exposition and dialogue, and it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of fell a little flat. It's decent. It's not super bad. Flash is doing the same thing like most other DC titles right now. They're going to be tying in Endless Winter in December, and then going to Future State, and then we will see what happens. But I would like to see some new blood take over Flash going forward in 2021. Detective Comics 1031, after complaining for a series of months about how this book seemed to have no real direction, Peter Tomasi had kind of spent everything he wanted to say about Batman already as an editor, as a writer, and I just didn't feel like he had anything left in him as far as this character goes for an ongoing series. I've been proven wrong over the last few issues. I've really liked it. Of course, you got this idea of the mirror. They're tying up some things that are going to lead into DC Future State. We know that the Magistrate is going to have a big deal to do with Gotham in particular in the Future State timeline. So they're setting that up, and they're working it, and they're doing some interesting stuff. This villain of the mirror is interesting, though he's a kind of reminds you of that dude from the Watchmen HBO series, but I mean, a villain, you know, so there's that. But Detective Comics is been really good over the last few issues, and mostly I think because they've got some solid artwork. We got Bill Key's Evely back on the artwork here, and she does a fantastic job. I think it's a she. Maybe I'm wrong. Great cover by Jorge Jimenez, and what Peter Tomasi's doing is he's redefining a new role for Damian and Bruce's relationship. And Damian and Bruce and their relationship has always been so incredibly well done under the pen of Peter Tomasi. So this run's been really cool, and they're doing one thing with building up the Magistrate stuff, and they're doing another thing with kind of making a statement on right now's relationship of Bruce and Damian, father and son, and I'm really liking it. So Detective Comics is one that was really wearing thin on me, and I'm actually enjoying it now, and I'm glad I am, because I'm not enjoying this one. Action Comics 1027. Y'all, I strive to be so positive. I try to look for what I like about something. There is nothing I like about Bendis' Action Comics of recent issues. I am a fan of John Romita Jr., especially when he's inked by Klaus Janson. This feels rushed. It feels out of nowhere. It feels half-hearted. The story just feels all over the place. It feels like we're rushing towards an ending on something that had a pretty decent setup. The Invisible Mafia, Red Cloud, it all gets so wrapped up so quickly in this issue. Just like, was this your ultimate plan? I really get the idea that Bendis' run has been cut short. I really do. I wonder if he was intended to continue Superman into 5G initially. It almost doesn't seem like it, because they already had Sean Lewis and Philip Kennedy Johnson doing their thing, but like, maybe he was continuing something with Legion. I'm not reading Legion. Anyway, this is trash. I just don't like it. It's not good. It's just rushing towards an ending of an interesting concept. And here's something that Bendis has done with the Superman books. He starts off with something interesting, but he just doesn't know how to see it through. And that's not typically something that, I guess it's kind of like Bendis in the last few years. He's kind of been like this on some things. He started more of his superhero works like this, but I still love his Daredevil. I still love his Ultimate Spider-Man. I still love almost every independent comic book he does. I want Bendis to refocus his efforts on indie stuff. I would like to see more down-to-earth crime fiction, cool stories like that from Bendis, because this Superman stuff's just not working for me. Action Comics 1027, Batman Superman 14, another book I cannot stand. This book has no direction. Its only identity is to sell a book based on the idea that Batman and Superman's going to sell a book. This is an excuse for another Batman book. Let's just be honest, okay? It's not even about the brand of Superman or the world's finest and their team-ups, because you get a little bit of that from Williamson, but it feels like he's phoning this one in. The artwork's kind of, it's okay. This wraps up that whole silly story they've been doing about the computer program that, whatever. I'm not liking this book. They are only making this book to kind of slyly put in another Batman title. I swear that's what they're doing, and it's just not working for me. So like most Batman Superman books, it starts off with a good story arc, and then they're just like, who cares? Just do whatever. It will not be long until this book is just alternating creative teams and telling stories of no significance. Now, not every story has to be some kind of like plugged into continuity big time thing, but if you're going to do a Batman Superman book, I want it to feel big, I want it to feel important, and I at least want it to have some really good character work and not just retread the same themes that have been done by so many other creators. And that's what they're doing for me in Batman Superman issue 14. Speaking of final issues, though, we got Hellblazer 12. It sucks that while we have books like Batman and Superman going on, Hellblazer's done here at issue number 12. Simon Spurrier's been doing such a great job bringing the character of John Constantine back to those Vertigo roots, hitting hard, raw, grit, real like magic type stuff, not like some kind of comic booky stuff. And I'm really liking it. But this is the final issue. Luckily, Simon Spurrier had 12 issues plus, a one-shot that kicked everything off to tell this one story. So he wraps it all up. It all starts making sense. It's a bit dense. There's a lot to it. The artwork by Aaron Campbell is just majestic. I love it. It is raw, and it pays so much tribute to all of the artists that came before in the Vertigo Hellblazer run. This is totally in that spirit. I'm totally gonna miss it, but Hellblazer number 12 was a pretty solid issue. Let's jump over to Marvel, where we have the conclusion of Ten of Swords. That's right, the last 3 chapters of Ten of Swords are out this week. Does it live up to its promise? Does it have a satisfying ending? Let's get into that. I would say overall, kinda. Let's get into it, though. X-Men number 15 is a fine issue. I loved this one. I knew that Hickman had a big hand in the finale, so I was excited. I love the opening of Ten of Swords. Like, the first half of it was great. They were slowly building up the threat, the significance of this event, of these characters, of these swords, and then they just kind of like rushed right through the actual tournament, made it silly, turned up the goofy meter, and now they're trying to dial that back and bring the stakes back up, and to me, it makes this entire event have a very uneven flow. That being said, X-Men number 15 is a very fine issue in which we do get some actual sword fighting, some great character work, and some really exciting moments that are going to set up a lot of tension between some of the X-Men and mutants and the Quiet Council. And it also really sets up a lot of friction within the Quiet Council. I liked this issue. I thought it was solid. The writing by Jonathan Hickman was spot on. This is what I like. This is what I was loving. This is what I was wanting. Excalibur. Excalibur's been one of the weaker X-Men books, in my opinion. I think Tini Howard is a fine writer, but it's just not exciting me. This was a solid issue of Excalibur. The last couple issues, the last couple issues have been, to me, actually some of the worst in Ten of Swords, but this was pretty good. But we're getting to the end. We're getting to the finale. We're cranking it up. We got a lot of explosive things happening. We have a lot of developments happening, and I think Howard and company handle it rather well in the pages of Excalibur number 12. So all in all, pretty decent. And then we have the final chapter. It's Ten of Swords Destruction. It's a one-shot written by Howard and Jonathan Hickman, with artwork by Pepe Larraz. So having Pepe back to do the artwork, that's amazing and really cool and really fun. And I like the ending of Ten of Swords. I just feel like those middle few chapters of the actual tournaments were just so, like, what? Who turned on the Benny Hill music? Why did they take such a weird, crazy, goofy direction, especially when the ending is supposed to have a lot of weight behind it? Now, I feel like the pacing of the event took away from the power of this ending. I like the ending, but I feel like the pace and flow and structure even of the entire event kind of takes away from it. That being said, some really interesting stuff happens in these issues. There's a lot of setup, but there's a lot of finality as well to some of this. But it's not going to be final for too long. A lot of this stuff is still dangling out there, possibly. But I do like the ending. I thought it was a satisfying conclusion. Was the entire event satisfying? Probably not. But I have a suspicion we'll be talking about that a lot coming up soon. Daredevil number 24 is here from Chip Zdarsky, Mike Hawthorne on the art. Marco Checchetto is such a brilliant artist, and when he is on an issue of Daredevil, it soars. Especially Chip Zdarsky's been doing a great stuff. Great job with this book. Rooting it in classic Marveldom, still making it feel a little bit more hip and contemporary. It feels less contemporary in this issue because they do some really goofy, typical, old school comic booky type things, which I like that kind of stuff. And maybe if Checchetto was doing the artwork, that was cool. Now, I understand Checchetto's not going to be he's not going to be able to do every single issue. Now, when they had Jorge Fornes doing the fill-ins, I think it worked, and it was a different style, but it was still very appropriate to Daredevil. This, Mike Hawthorne, he's a fine artist, but there's nothing dynamic about it. There's nothing that you haven't seen before, and so when you're dealing with silly things like I don't know, like Daredevil wearing like a suit and tie and then his Daredevil mask and walking into a courtroom, it just doesn't. It looks so goofy because it's just so regularly done. I don't know. Daredevil number 24 is a solid issue, but it's not as good as the series has been. But I always think that when it's not Checchetto on here or Fornes. When Fornes was doing it, that was great. Of course, now he's got 12 issues of Rorschach to do, so he ain't going to be back anytime soon. Daredevil number 24, though, was solid. It was interesting, but now I am ready to see, and there's some great developments here that I'm really excited to see how Chip and company are going to ride that on through into future issues. Daredevil number 24, it was solid. It was all right. Power Pack number 1. Even though I do like some of these characters in Power Pack, because at times they have had ties to Franklin Richards, especially back in the old school days, and me being a kid, I guess, I didn't mind Power Pack as much. I did not like this issue. It was incredibly wordy. Overly verbose, right? And it was bogged down with pacing issues. It didn't have much excitement as far as composition or even story for me. If you're an old school, hardcore, like Power Pack fan, like if you're the biggest Power Pack fan, you got every single damn issue, you got posters, you got whatever. Have they even done any Power Pack action figures? If you got custom-made Power Pack action figures, this book is for you. Otherwise, skip it. It didn't do much. In fact, why even bring back Power Pack? Just another Future Foundation book. That'd be cool. Why not? They're, half of them were part of that. Maestro number 4 is here. Maestro is an interesting book. I like Peter David. I like the character of the Maestro and this whole, futuristic dystopian world in which the Hulk rules all. This is the story of how he got to be that way. This story weakens the whole concept of the Maestro to me. It makes the ascent to kinghood. It makes it seem like, it just makes it takes away from some of the badassery of the character of the Maestro for me by adding in this whole element of another Maestro that existed before. Spoilers, it's Hercules, and now he's got to defeat Hercules. And there's those moments in here where Maestro comes across as pretty weak and cunning at times, but maybe a bit too pathetic, to be honest. And I don't know. I like Peter David a lot. I love Herman Peralta's artwork. I think it's fantastic. But man, I think that this is a book that's not needed. I like the story in my head of how Hulk took over the world a lot better than this, to be honest with you. Hey, it's Amazing Spider-Man again, issue 53.LR. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough week. My family's not doing Thanksgiving because of all the situation. the Lakers didn't re-sign Rondo, and the more I think about that, the more I'm kind of down about that. And then Amazing Spider-Man, another 53-point LR. Y'all, if you like Spider-Man right now, and I know a lot of people are liking this run, and that's fine. Just skip the LRs. They are worthless. There's not, what is going on? First of all, complete mischaracterization of Moreland that's done in this issue, and then all of a sudden it just switches stories in the middle of it, and it doesn't feel natural. It just feels jolting and jarring, and then it just kind of, I don't like it. I don't like it. Fantastic Four, Antithesis number 4. This is the final issue. I'm glad this is over. I haven't really been liking this book that much. It's nice to see Neil Adams do Fantastic Four, to do Silver Surfer, to draw Galactus. That's great stuff. The story's been a bit kooky and okay. This was a rather dumb conclusion, in my opinion. It's okay. I like seeing Neil Adams do the Fantastic Four, but the story itself is just, I don't know. And what's up with these redesigned costumes? Like, I get the story point of it, but like, Neil, we've been waiting for you to draw the Fantastic Four your whole damn career, and you're going to try to design them some weird, like, Scientology bullshit to wear? Whatever. Doctor Doom number 9 is here. My favorite thing about this issue is that this is the penultimate issue of Doctor Doom. That's right, only one left and it's over. I have not been liking this book. Victor Von Doom is one of my favorite characters. Now, maybe one of the reasons why I don't like this book so much is that Victor is so much one of my favorite characters. I have really rigid and narrow ideas about how I think Victor should and would act in certain situations. And in this run, he's been too whiny. He's been too soft. He's been too pathetic. And it comes across again in issue number 9. Like, I think Christopher Cantwell is a great writer, but he just does not understand Victor, at least my interpretation of Victor, which, I think it's right, but it doesn't matter. This run is ending. I know a lot of people like it. It was nominated for Best New Series in the Eisners last year, and it didn't win, but, I mean, I just don't like it. And I'm curious, if you've been a hardcore Victor Von Doom fan for most of your comic book reading life, do you like this book? Let me know in the comments down below. I think the Victor is completely mischaracterized, and they also forget certain things that just happened recently. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the Bendis and Malieve International Iron Man run, but he's already tried to be a hero. He's already tried to prove to the world that he's a hero, and it didn't work, and this is not the next step for Victor. So, I have not liked this run. I'm not sad to see it wrap up soon, and this issue to me was just an insult to that character. Marvel, number 2, forgot about this one. So they were celebrating 25 years of the book Marvels. So Alex Ross, Kurt Busiek, they came back, they did some things. This is an anthology series that's got like framing pages by Alex Ross and Kurt Busiek, but then it's mostly like 3 small tales. I almost didn't read this one. But I'm glad I did, because there are 3 really good stories in here. There's a Vision story that's pretty cool. Hardcore Vision fans, you're going to like that one. There's a rather silly Doctor Doom and Thing and Spider-Man story about a special cannoli done by Eric Powell that, yes, Victor wouldn't do that either. But this story is presenting itself as goofy and silly. This story is presenting itself rather seriously. Yeah, that is Doctor Doom. But the opening story in here is really, really solid. Dan Brayerton, who was the guy who did, I almost said Gunslingers. Gunslingers, one of the characters, what was that book called? Was it the Supernaturals? No, it wasn't Supernaturals. Oh my goodness, what's that book called that he did over at Oni Press? It's like they're all monsters or whatever. I can't remember. Anyway, I love his artwork. I haven't seen this cat do anything in a long time. So I really like that story. And it's a story of when the new X-Men from Giant Size first had their first training Danger Room mission with the old OG X-Men. It's pretty cool. I thought it was great. Let's get into some indies. From Vault Comics, we have some exciting new titles this week, including I Walk with Monsters #1. This is a brand new book from Vault, part of their Nightfall line, which is their horror imprint. It's written by Paul Cornell with artwork by Sally Cantorino, and let's see, coloring by Dearbala Kelly, and world design on the lettering. I loved this book. I had a chance to read this a few weeks ago. I didn't get a chance to do an advanced review, but I was telling everybody Sunday night on Rockin' Robbie Live that this book was awesome and definitely something to put on your pool. I really like this. So it's about this woman who dealt with a lot of shit when she was a kid, and now because of everything she dealt with, she's on a mission. She's got a purpose. Her purpose, her mission, is to go find child kidnappers and murderers and take them out, right? But she does so because she literally walks with monsters. She's got a friend who turns into a monster, who does all the dirty work, though she is usually the bait. It has a lot of great setup. They don't really fully explain everything, but that's something Vault usually lets go throughout the whole thing. It is a very strong first issue, though. With the ending, I'm immediately hooked. I want to see where this is going to go. Great characters, great solid artwork, and another great, deliberate, and purposeful comic book from Vault Comics. This was great. Now, I've read Paul Cornell's stuff before. Saucer Country is one of my favorites. His work can get a bit stagnant at times as far as the dialogue goes, but it doesn't happen here with I Walk with Monsters. I really want to attribute that just to Vault Comics, to Adrian Wazzle, who is such a great editor. We really got to have some editorial love right here, because Adrian is able to do and pull out the best out of some of the best creators, and I think he did that here with I Walk with Monsters, taking nothing away from the creative team, because this is a great solid story with really compelling characters that are easily relatable, and just a well-executed, pretty much pitch perfectly paced comic book. I Walk with Monsters #1, another solid #1 from Vault, another solid #1 from Vault's Nightfall line, and I'm excited to see where this is going to go. That one was really, really cool. Liked it a lot. Also, we got Wasted Space issue #17, second part of the 4th arc. That's right, there's going to be 5 arcs, 25 issues total. This is one of my favorite comic books on shelves, and it is every single time it comes out. I love this issue. Michael Morisi has got a great way of telling a fun story with a lot of humor, but a lot of weight to it as well. He gets into some philosophical ramblings at time, which I absolutely love, and it's very balanced as far as the characters and all that kind of stuff goes. The artwork by Hayden Sherman is just amazing. Brilliant. I think in the last issue he did some of his best composition and layouts of his career. In this one, he tells the story very accurately. He does a little bit more detail. He's got a great textured grit to his artwork that is supremely highlighted and enhanced by Jason Wordie's coloring. You got Jim Campbell on the lettering. Wasted Space is one of my favorite books. It is nearing its end. We're hitting some big moments. We got some new characters introduced. We got some big time revelations. I loved every page of this, like I have for every single issue of Wasted Space. If you are not reading this book, it's like Star Wars meets Preacher. It's wild, it's rambunctious, it's fun, but it is grounded in strong philosophical reasonings and solid, supremely solid artwork from Hayden Sherman and Jason Wordie. Wasted Space #17 is here. Get wasted. I love it. Speaking of Michael Morisi, he does a book with Tim Daniel called The Plot. This is issue #7 of The Plot. The penultimate issue. Joshua Hickson's artwork here is great. Incredibly, intensely atmospheric and moody. We are picking up the pace. A lot of exposition was done in the last issue or two, explaining a lot of what's actually going on. Now we're hitting that end game, the final bits, and even though it's got some great spooky atmospheric action in it, it really is weighted and anchored by the story of this family. The story of this family with a past of regret, with the sins of the father coming down to every single son and daughter and down the line. And I am loving what they're doing with the plot, what they're doing with the subtext, how the thematic element of what's going on with the story, this family is literally drowning in their past sins, you can say, and now the house is literally being flooded and drowned, and it's got this whole, it ties into this whole like swamp monster type thing, and I'm just loving it. The plot #7 was fan-freaking-tastic. The Autumnal is here with issue #3. Both of these, by the way, part of the Nightfall line of Vault. Yo, We already thought Vault was just badass on their own. Now we got Nightfall to contend with. The Autumnal is really, really solid in issue number 3. It takes a little bit of a jump, and at first I was a bit confused with how this tied into the end of the last issue, but now I'm realizing that some time had passed, and the main characters are trying to make a go at it, right? But it's about this woman and her daughter who wind up returning to her hometown in which she left when she was a kid. Her mom died, left the house to her, so she's been kind of down on her luck, so she goes there. There's a lot of weird, creepy things going on. Some of the people in the town are acting weird. There's something going on with the leaves, something going on with the bugs. There's a bunch of supernatural mystery going on in this book that hasn't been fully explained, but the character work is incredibly solid. This is about a woman who ran away from something, and then she ran into a bottle. She ran into probably many bottles, whether it's alcohol or pills, who knows. There's a past that you can start picking up on this character, and now she's forced to return and confront what she ran away from or was sent away from. And I really like the subtext here. You got great artwork by Chris Sheehan, Jason Wordie on the coloring, and Jim Campbell. Let's just get Wordie to color as many books as possible because he's such a fantastic colorist. Bleed Them Dry is here with issue number 5, the penultimate issue. And I love that word. Bleed Them Dry is a really cool ninja, vampire, cyberpunk, futuristic type tale. It's a murder mystery. It's neo-noir, but it's also just a lot of fun. It's got a lot of action. It's got Dike Ruan on the artwork. The artwork is really great, and the cityscapes are some of the best I've seen in futuristic comic books in the last several months, if not years. Elliot Rahall's doing a great job of taking a concept and making it his own, doing something really exciting with it. At times, I was a bit lost. I kind of forgot what had happened in issue number 4, but there's only one, or issue 5, yeah, issue 4. There's only one issue left, but all in all, this book has been really fun. Ninjas versus vampires in a futuristic cyberpunk situation. I mean, it's really all I need to get every single issue. Vault has a really strong week this week. From Boom. You know, it's local comic shop day this week, everybody, so please support your LCS. And many companies have put out some special books out today to help you go and celebrate your local comic shop. And some of them are really great, including Boom. Boom doesn't have anything new that I read, but we got Something is Killing the Children #1, a foil edition. I believe this is the 7th printing of this book. It is. But as you can see, it's for local comic shop day. A foil version of Something is Killing the Children #1. Had to get that. Also got foil versions of Mighty Morphin #1, the brand new Power Rangers book by Ryan Parrott from Boom. That's a cool foil cover. But look at that Peach Momoko foil. Now, I know a lot of people are Momoko crazy. I know it keeps glaring. A lot of people are Momoko crazy, and that's cool. I like her artwork sometimes. I really like this cover, but I missed out on it because it was like an incentive, and I didn't really want to pay for it. But to get a cover price foil version of it, that looks so sharp. It's the Omega Red Ranger. Super cool stuff. Let's jump over to Image. We have the Scumbag, issue number 2. So I found out recently that each issue of the Scumbag was going to have a different artist. That made me concerned. Because the first issue, I don't even remember the artist's name right now, but the first issue had amazingly detailed, realistic, painted Mark Texeira type artwork that I really liked. And now we have Andrew Robinson, and it's a different style, but it's still really clean, very refined, and I think it works. And in next issue, we have Eric Powell. And so if Eric Powell, if he's doing more of that painted type style, it's going to be phenomenal. So I think that this book is going to be fine as far as artistic hands being switched back and forth. But what about the story? How do you take a story that's about the world's worst person, a scumbag, a drug addict, he's a junkie, he's a serial abuser, he's just a terrible, douchey type person, and he winds up thinking that he's buying some smack or something, and he shoots himself up, and he winds up, during this crazy sequence of events in issue number 1, injecting himself with some kind of formula that's been designed to give somebody superpowers to try to stop this evil organization from taking over the world. So now the hope of the world from a James Bond type situation is given to like the Scumbag, the worst person ever. They really keep it going here in issue number 2. It's got a lot of humor. It doesn't have much heart to it. I'm pretty sure that Rick Remender is going to eventually get there, but this is a pretty solid outing from Rick Remender. I really like Robinson's artwork here. I think it's fun. I think if you like the first one, if the entire reason you liked the first issue was solely because of that cat's artwork, maybe you'll be a little discombobulated when you first start reading here. But if you like the story of the first one, you're going to like this one because it's raunchy, it's ridiculous, and it's just so exciting. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's definitely for me. The Scumbag number 2, I thought that was great. Spawn 312. Spawn 312 is here. I have the local comic shop day version. There is a regular cover B by Todd McFarlane. They're homaging the Spider-Man 700 cover, I think, by Marcos Martin, I think. So there's a regular cover of this with all the creators that have ever worked on Spawn, all their names. And that's cool. But for the local comic shop day one, they have the names of all these comic shops that have been supporting Spawn for a long time. Just great comic shops. It's not every single comic shop in the world, but it's a lot of them. There's even some on the back. And I do want to point out that the shop I manage is right there. The Deep Comics and Games. How freaking cool is that? We're on the cover, baby. We're on the cover. If you want a copy signed, just swing by the shop. We'll all sign it. Because Strickland had the idea. He's like, I want to get everybody to sign a copy. That'd be really cool. Anyway, Spawn number 312. Still a bit confused by what's actually going on. I'm way behind on Spawn. I've read through like 85 issues, I think. And then I started picking it up shortly after 300. So I'm a bit confused about some aspects, mostly done in the latter half of this book. But the opening was mostly dealing with Gunslinger Spawn. And even though I'm a bit confused at what exactly is going on, I'm picking up some ideas. But like Gunslinger Spawn is awesome. Awesome. So I really like this issue. Plus it doesn't hurt the comic shop I work at is on the cover. How freaking cool is that? You should definitely get a copy of this if you can and see if your shop's on there. And if so, point it out in the PCP Army on Facebook, the official Pop Culture Philosophers Facebook group. Undiscovered Country. Number 10 is here from Charles Soule and Scott Snyder, that's his name. GFC Comicoli. I really liking Undiscovered Country. It's taking like legends and lore and folk tales from the American, mythology and bringing it into like a Wizard of Oz, Narnia, Lord of the Rings type fantastical dystopian Mad Max type situation. It's really. That probably was confusing me saying that. Undiscovered Country is great. So it's a world in which the U.S. has completely walled and shut themselves off from the rest of the world. And time has gone by, and now people go in there, and more time has actually happened in the U.S., and it's been divided up into all of these factions. One of them was like this crazy Mad Max type situation with a lot of mutated things called Destiny. Now we're in Utopia, which is more technologically based and about everybody kind of giving it all up, all for the good of the whole and things like. It's really interesting. But what I love about it is that they're telling a very Wizard of Oz type fantasy epic through America as the fantasy land, and they're using American mythology and lore, like from the Founding Fathers and our national anthem and things like that. They're using that as the basis almost as to belief and the segmenting of society. And I really, really like this book. I think it's rather clever. I think it's really interesting. Nothing about the characters pull me in. So it's why it's, to me, not one of the best books on shelves, but I think the concept is completely compelling. And I think the way that they're telling it is rooted in old school fantasy stories that work for a reason, and I think Snyder and Soule know exactly what they're doing. Undiscovered Country number 10. It could use some stronger characters. It really, really cool. Could. Speaking of local comic shop day, we got another reprinting of Ice Cream Man number 20, this time with the orange cover, so why not? Why not have this be the single issue that I own the most copies of? Why not? Why the hell not? From Aftershock, we have Kaiju Score number 1. This was a really, really cool book. Aftershock's had some hits and misses. We Live was solid, but Sympathy for No Devils, which has a new issue out this week, just not really liking that one. Kaiju Score was pretty solid. This is great. It's a heist story that takes place in a world in which kaiju exist. And so this is a heist that's planned around a kaiju invasion. But the way it's told, the structure of the story. The artwork's decent. It's okay. It may be a bit too expressive, I would say, but most people would say cartoony. Kaiju Score, though, was really expertly written. Like, it's got some great dialogue. It fits like the best stuff you know from a heist movie. It's got that great quick pace to it, a little bit of mystery to the background of the characters. But then you wrap it all up in the idea of that it's a heist planned around a kaiju invasion. That's pretty freaking dope. But James Patrick did a great job of breaking this down, and this was just a fantastic script, and I thought it led to a very exciting issue number 1. Kaiju Score from Aftermath. Aftershock. Aftermath is Dre. Been there. Done that. Yo, you got guns. Man, I got straps. There's a mini money lovers. Whatever. I'm not going to. Devil's Highway is here with issue number 5. This is the final issue, but have no fear. It will be returning back. Like all the Benjamin Percy ones. He's like, yo, I'll write for you, but only if I get to keep doing the books that I want to do. Year Zero had a volume 2. Devil's Highway is going to get a volume 2, and it needs it. This has been a great, solid book with really solid artwork from Brett Schwooner and Nick Filardi. I really, really like this one. And it's about this woman whose dad was murdered by like a trucker. So she winds up investigating, trying to figure out what's going on and bring justice, if not vengeance, for her father. And she has to go into the underbelly in the dark, seedy world of 18-wheelers and truckers and Satanism and murder. But I think they did a great job. This is a nice, satisfying conclusion. It's been decent. The conclusion kind of happens suddenly. That's something I've been noticing about these AWA books. Some of them are not paced the best towards the end. Maybe this one needed a little bit more time. I know it's coming back, but I think this book overall would have really benefited from another issue. I think sometimes people get too stuck on the idea of just doing, well, we do 5-issue series or we do 6-issue series. You got to do what the story calls for, and that's something you see out of Vault, for instance, and I think it could really benefit some of these AWA books that maybe need a bit more room to breathe, and I think Devil's Highway could have benefited with a little bit more room to breathe, but they are bringing it back, and that is exciting. From Source Point Press, we have Black of Heart number 1, really striking, cool cover, decent artwork inside that I really like. I really like the artwork inside. But the book just didn't do much for me. It was kind of confusing, kind of hard to get into. I didn't relate to any of the characters. I didn't care about them. I didn't care about this murder mystery. And that's what it is. It's like a detective noir murder mystery type thing with a little bit of a supernaturally tint to it. But overall, it just didn't do much for me. Black of Heart was just kind of a dud for me. Another one, though, from Source Point was Mother, a post-apocalyptic tale. Didn't really dig on this one either. This is a one-shot, so it's a one and done. It's decent. It's got some moments that should work, but it gets kind of bogged down by some excessive verbiage, bro. It's most non-triumphant for me. Mother number 1 is okay. It's like I said, it's a one-shot, so it's not an ongoing series. I thought the artwork was okay. The story has really good ideas, but I just don't feel like it was executed the best. But that's a one-shot from Source Point Press. And from Dark Horse Comic, we have Colonel Weird, Cosmagog number 2. Written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Tyler Crook from Dark Horse Comics. Really like this. It's from the world of Black Hammer. Colonel Weird is kind of like their Adam Strange character. And in the Black Hammer series, the main series, it's wrapped up now. Now we're getting these miniseries. This is explaining more of like his origins, who he is, his powers, what's going on there. Because he's kind of always in and out of reality through space and time. And it's a bit confusing and disconnected when you read Black Hammer, but this starts pulling a lot of that together. He's a fascinating character already. So when you're exploring his origins, some really cool, wild, fantastical concepts as well, and great artwork by Tyler Crook that is just amazing. It's got its own cartoonish type style, but it is so grounded because it's textured. It's so ultra dimensional, like meaning like, well, as far as the story goes, I mean, he's literally going through time and space and other dimensions, but the artwork's got this great coloring to it, this nice sheen and gloss to it that makes it feel so real and almost 3D. I love Tyler Crook's artwork. I love Jeff Lemire's writing. I love the world of Black Hammer, and Colonel Weird's one of my favorite characters. So yes, supremely sold on that one. X-Ray Robot, issue number 4, this final issue of X-Ray Robot by Mike Allred. What a weird, kind of confusing ending. I didn't quite get it. I'm going to definitely have to sit down and read it. I was talking about how some books need more space to breathe. This one could have used a little bit more space to breathe because there's a lot of things that they're trying to tie together. This is another story that goes through time and space, and it's coming back full circle in and around itself, you know, Ouroboros and all that. But like, I just didn't quite nail that ending. The artwork is still great, and there is a guest appearance in here from one of my favorite Mike Allred characters, if one of my favorite comic book characters created by Mike Allred. Pretty sure you know who I'm talking about, and I'm not trying to get mad about it, man. But X-Ray Robot number 4 was pretty solid, but at the same time, I feel like maybe the story should have had a little bit more space, a little bit more time. Y'all, see what I did? I just off the dome. Anyway, X-Ray Robot number 4 is out this week. From IDW, we have Usagi Yojimbo, Wanderer's Road number 1. If you're a big Usagi fan, you see this on the shelf, be warned that this is nothing new. This is continuing basically Usagi Yojimbo Color Classics. This is basically volume 2 of that. So they already did Usagi Color Classics, which is reprinting the original Ronin book that you used to have to get through Fantagraphics. Reprinting them chapter by chapter in color. Now they're continuing it, getting into book 2 here with The Wanderer's Road, and you got a new cover by Peach Momoko, and that's pretty cool. And I have a note here saying Stargazer number 3, because my shop was shorted our copies of Stargazer 3, also shorted our copies of Assassin and Son, so I didn't get to read that one. But Stargazer number 3, I did get to read a digital copy of it, so thank you so much, Mad Cave. We really do appreciate it. Station, Stargazer's great. Issue 3 was amazing. Antonio Fuso's artwork, the coloring, oh my goodness, I love it. It is a story about this kid who him and his sister and her sister's friends, when they were young, had an encounter with extraterrestrials or ultra-dimensionals, some kind of alien-type presence, and now as adults, he's gone missing, and they're re-experiencing some things, and they have to figure out the mystery of what's going on. It is a total Teen Dog Shades type book. In fact, we bookended the entire weekly comic book review with Teen Dog Shades because Department of Truth, Stargazer is great. One of my favorite books about the subject of alien abductions so far. 3 issues in out of 6, and I think it's super solid. It's written by Anthony Cleveland, and to me, he's the best writer at Mad Cave right now. They got great writers at Mad Cave. Mark London, Jay Sandlin. Jay's my homie. Jay, what's up, Station? But Anthony's just doing great stuff with Stargazer, with shows in. Like, I really, really like Stargazer. I still stand by 3 issues in to my statement that so far, for me, it's been the best Mad Cave book I've ever read. So that's what I read this week. That's what I thought about it. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And click the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. And join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I hope everybody has a very safe and fun Thanksgiving here in the States and elsewhere around the world. Just have a great week. We really do appreciate everything. Thanks for rocking with us. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups. Station, keep on reading.